Hey guys, this is Gunther from LRTimelapse.com, and I think today is a good time to speak again about exposure and ISO ramping. Many of you have seen the DSLR dashboard video that I made, where I show how to control the camera while shooting time-lapse with a tablet. And meanwhile, a lot of development has taken place, and Zoltan Ubay, the developer of DSLR dashboard, came up with a couple of new versions, and since a couple of months we have the opportunity to shoot so-called auto holy grail, so we can just leave the process of changing exposure time and ISO to the tablet, so the DSLR dashboard will just do all the hard work for us, and we can go and have a beer or do whatever. So today I would like to show and introduce you that possibilities, and certainly that is the easiest and most affordable to shoot perfect holy grail sequences, because every other approach involves investing in hardware or other stuff, and this one is just, the app is free, so if you have an Android tablet or smartphone, you can just start doing this perfect holy grail transitions from day to night. And the latest version, the Q DSLR dashboard, you can get it on dslrdashboard.info. This one is cross-platform and it's awesome. It's more stable than the old version, and it works not only on Android tablets, it works on PC and it works on MacBooks as well. The only thing that's still missing is iOS, but I think probably Zoltan will be working on that in the future. Let's just have a look at this new version, and I would like to take the opportunity today to try to make a nice transition from day into night. So I will just connect to the camera, and like you probably know from my last video, you can just use the DSLR dashboard with a normal USB connection to the camera. You can use it with via Wi-Fi with the TP-Link router. It's a cheap one for 30 bucks. You can just use that router and connect any camera that is not Wi-Fi enabled with that TP-Link router via Wi-Fi. So any Canon, any Nikon camera you can connect, or all of those cameras via USB. And what I'm going to do today is just use the internal Wi-Fi of the Canon 6D. So like you can see here, we have already a connection with the Canon 6D. So now what I have to do is just start the Q DSLR dashboard here and click on the Canon VFT connection here. And please don't worry about the setup that you see here. This is just a slider setup, but you could just use a tripod and an interval timer with a normal camera to shoot this. You don't need a slider, or don't need all that stuff. It just doesn't matter how you set up your time lapse. You can use any setup for that. So just connect via Wi-Fi or USB to the camera, and then just let's set the settings right. What I'm going to do is just click on the shutter button and now hit play once, just to see how my image looks like and if the exposure is good or not. Please make sure to set your camera to RAW plus JPEG, and the smaller the JPEG that you set, the better, because that JPEG has to be transmitted from the camera to the tablet. So I will now set this display next JPEG here. You can see it's already highlighted, so the next shutter release will just transmit the JPEG that the camera shoots into the tablet, and you see this is pretty fast, even if it's through Wi-Fi. So now you can observe the histogram, and you can probably decide that you would like a shorter shutter speed. So let me just set the shutter speed here to 1/50th of a second. Have to activate Display Next JPEG again, so otherwise you won't see it. So now you see the histogram shifts to the right, so let's do that once more. I will just increase the shutter time once more to 1/30th, activate Display Next JPEG and just click the shutter. So now you see this one is perfectly exposed, and let's just start the time lapse by hitting OK here on my controller, and now you can see the camera goes down. This is just a slider movement, and this is totally independent from what we are doing with the tablet. So this is a normal time-lapse shot, and if you followed my Holy Grail tutorials, you know that normally I would have been changing exposure time and ISO at the camera, but this would of course risk to shake the camera. So the next step was to just change the exposure time when we see the histogram gets too dark here. It moves too far to the left, then just hit on plus or minus here for shutter time or ISO. But now what we are going to do today is we'll automate this process. So just have a look here at the other settings. So we have a slowest shutter speed setting here. What does that mean? This means that as soon as we go to Auto Holy Grail, the automatics here will just ramp up the shutter speed as it gets darker. Another setting you see at the top is sunset. If you click here, you can set it to sunset or sunrise. So of course now we have a sunset here situation, so the images are going to get darker. Okay, with 1/30th and ISO 100 we're fine for now, but as it gets darker we would like it to automatically increase first shutter time, then ISO. I recommend to leave 2 or 3 seconds dark time in between the longest shutter and the interval that you set, just to allow the camera to transfer the JPEG and the tablet to control the camera in this time, because during the exposure the camera will not accept any commands from the tablet. So usually if you feel that some of those Holy Grail shots are locking up, the camera is not responding anymore to the commands of the tablet, then probably that dark time is too short, so then you probably have only 1 or 2 seconds. So just to be sure, leave a dark time of 3 seconds, then you're fine. So in this case I have an interval of 7 seconds. Let's just set the slowest shutter speed here to 4 seconds, and this is the default anyway, so I will leave it with 4 seconds. The next setting is the maximum ISO, so I just leave it to ISO 3200. So after ramping the exposures up until 4 seconds, DSLR dashboard will start ramping the ISO values. The rest of the settings you can just leave them alone, they are fine like they are. So let's just click on Auto Holy Grail. You see some readouts up in the top left. One is the last average and the floating average and the reference. So those values will indicate how DSLR dashboard is working in the background. So now we have an average. The number is not important. It just says, okay, this is a average brightness of this whole image here. So let's say we are around about 11,000 here, and now the reference value is set a little bit lower. That was set when I clicked on Auto Holy Grail. So DSLR dashboard will now try to stay with this reference value. So as soon as the histogram shifts to the left and the values get lower, you can see the average is still 1.2%. Now it's 0.9% above the reference, and as soon as this goes below the reference, it will start and increase the shutter time. So let's just observe this. Now we are at 0.5, and this floating average just means it will not react instantly if some brightness change occur. It will just use a floating algorithm to just smoothen out things. So now we are 0.1%, so you see it's already getting darker. Now we are minus 0.1%, and you can see the shutter time already changed from 1/30th to 1/25th of a second. So, and the next readout will probably be higher again. And now you see the floating average jumped up to 14,000, and it's 22.2% above the reference. This is what the numbers mean. So now you can just stay on autopilot, put your tablet away and get yourself a beer. So this really allows you for a relaxed evening. And another benefit of working like this is that you can use very short adjustments. So in this case here we have an EV step of 0.33. So 1/3 stops is what we are changing here, and these are really small stops. So if you use bigger stops, like if you did it manually, then you always have the problem of some pumping might occur around bright areas because the difference between one EV is just too big. But in this case, when we automate it, we can just use very, very small steps, so 1/3 EV, and then later on you can use the Holy Grail wizard in LR Timelapse to smoothen out all those jumps automatically, and yeah, this really works out very well. So okay, let's just leave the camera running here, and there's not so much that will happen. And I think I will get myself a beer, and then we can just come back in a second and check back. I can just take my tablet with me, or I can just put it here. I have a reach of say 20 meters with a Canon 6D Wi-Fi here in this open area, probably more. Oh, this is cool. So this is my beer, but I could as well just go away and do something else and come back in half an hour. Okay guys, cheers. So from time to time I'm just check back, and now there is one thing. Because I mean, with this currently the images are very bright, and now it really depends of how dark it gets. If you do this in a city, then it won't get really dark. Then you can stay with that high reference values until it's dark, because then eventually the lights will go on and it will stay bright. But if you are like we've been in La Palma recently for the Astromaster, where you have really dark nights, so it gets pitch black. So in that case you wouldn't like the algorithm to just stay with this bright reference. So just from time to time check back, and if you feel your images are getting too bright, you just use the reference. You can see the button Set Reference Now. If you click that button Set Reference Now, then you will set the reference to the current floating average value. This is usually not what you would like to do now, but if you see the minus and plus buttons left and right from that, that's what you would like to use. If I click on minus, the reference just goes down. So now in this case I have 9,800 something, and so I can just change the reference, and this is what will determine when the camera or when the tablet will make the next adjustment. So if you want the whole sequence just to get gradually darker, then just lower the reference value, and it's enough normally if you just check back every 20 minutes to the tablet, and then you see, okay, oh no, it's a little bit too bright, then you just change the reference. But like I said, this really depends on the situation you're shooting, on how dark it really gets, on how fast it gets dark, and so it's very important to just check from time to time what the tablet is doing. But all in all, you have a nice automatic setting, and can just leave it alone, and it really works out reliable. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and please remember to credit Zoltan for this great piece of software here, and he still offers the QDSLR dashboard for free as well. So if you use it, please donate and spread the word about it, because this is really a cool solution. And I mean, now it's working on laptops and MacBooks and stuff like that, and I think this is really awesome, and it's pretty stable. I did most of the shots in La Palma with this technique, and no one failed me, and the other participants of Astromaster just used it a lot as well, and were really happy with that. So just use it, try it, comment, spread the word. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye. Okay, back in the office. So this is the sequence that we just shot. I admit it's not exactly pretty, and that's the reason why I aborted it really early. I was just expecting a nice sunset to come, but it didn't, so this was just gray and boring, and okay, so I stopped it here. But anyway, to just show you a quick edit on how to level all those jumps in brightness that we have there, I think it's good for that. So now we are in LR Timelapse here, and I just chose the Holy Grail workflow tab here. So because this is a kind of a Holy Grail sequence, we call it Holy Grail if we change the exposure time and ISO. So first thing always is initializing that sequence. I already did this. The next thing is just to use the keyframes wizard to mark all that jumps here where the changes in settings occurred. And the third step would be the Holy Grail wizard, and it will automatically just for that brightness changes here by just changing the exposure of the images. That's the Lightroom setting for exposure, just vice versa to the change in the luminance curve, the blue one here. So the yellow curve with the exposure is just a mirrored curve to the blue one, and so this will just lead to equalized image brightnesses afterwards. Yeah, so basically this is what we do in the first step. I'm not going to explain the whole Holy Grail process very in depth in this tutorial, because there is another tutorial on my site lrtimelapse.com where you can just check out all the in-depth explaining of the Holy Grail process. So in this case I will just add 2 color keyframes here, just to be able to make some color corrections from the start to the end, and just go to save. This is a shortcut to the normal process where you just go back and forth with Lightroom. So I'm just dragging my sequence here into Lightroom in order to import it into the Lightroom catalog. Just click on import to edit here. Now I will go to the folder in my library where we imported it into, and let's just have a quick look at all that keyframes. So those 2 and 3 stars keyframes here, they just should have the exposure adjustments. So if I go back and forth from this one to this one here, let's just load the settings, and I go back and forth, you can't see any change in brightness anymore. But if I check the develop module here, you can clearly see that this one has an exposure value of plus 0.23, and the next one has minus 0.11. So that compensation is exactly what we need to just get 2 similar looking images here, and this is what the Holy Grail wizard does. Okay, so all this looks really fine. So I'm going to my special filter here and filter for the 4-star keyframes, and this will just give me the first and the last image of my sequence. So I can do some really rough adjustments here to my color settings. The only thing that you never should change if you use that Holy Grail technique is the exposure, because that's already taken in the background for the adjustments for the levelings. Okay, we can just add a gradient filter here. Just use one of those predefined gradient filters that have been created by the initialization of LR Timelapse, increase the contrast a little bit, increase clarity for the clouds, so just that they don't look that boring anymore. You can just increase clarity and vibrance a little bit. We'll just copy those settings, make sure that exposure is not clicked, like I told you, don't touch the exposure, and paste it to my last image. So this one is now it's a little bit dark, so let's just increase shadows a bit. And again, I'm not supposed to use exposure for this, but I can just remove the gradient, or just make this one a little bit brighter as well. So now we have a nice looking last image. And yeah, basically that's it. Let's just go back to grid view. Let's just select everything and hit Ctrl S in order to save the metadata to the files. And now back in LR Timelapse, we just go to reload, and you cannot see any change. You first have to click on this all key here, on this all button here, and then you can see something is happening to the curves. And now go to Auto Transition Special, this would be the next button, and make sure that all but Holy Grail here is selected, because we are going to connect the 4-star keyframes with that color changes that we did. And then click on this button. Now you can see that the additional settings here were ramped, and this is basically the shadows that we changed, and it's the exposure of the first gradient. You can see it here in the table. Okay, the last step is just to save here and go back to Lightroom, remove the filter, check the full sequence, just hit Ctrl A or Command A on your Mac, just right mouse button, metadata, read metadata from files, and this is going to give us all the changed intermediary sequences with all that ramped Lightroom developments and the adjusted exposures. And now we can just export that video from via the export here. Just choose the LR Timelapse export preset here, and it will automatically generate you the file name here, and just go on export. And after it finished that export, we will have the finished video. This was a very short explanation of the LR Timelapse Holy Grail process. I hope you enjoyed it nevertheless. If you want more, just please make sure to check the Holy Grail tutorial on lrtimelapse.com, because there I explain everything really slowly and in depth, so you will be able to just follow it easier, but this was just to show you how quick you can do that edits. So, conclusion, QTSLR dashboard and LR Timelapse are really good match, and allow you to easily produce day to night and night to day transitions with an awesome look. The only thing that you then need is a nice evening, a nice sunset or sunrise, not like this one here. But I'm sure you will find it. Okay, thank you very much for watching, and see you next time on lrtimelapse.com. Bye bye!